Good morning, everyone. My name is Frestiani Rahadian Sitoresmi with 3 last digits student number of 170. And in today's presentation, we will discuss about the topic of Popper's theory of falsification and Kuhn's science paradigm. Let's get started. Okay, first, let's start with Popper's theory of falsification. If you remember, last week, we discussed about positivism's approach of science, which has a notion that scientific knowledge should be acquired through observation of apprehensible real-life experiences. So, a theory is created using the inductive method, which means that scientists should conduct observation of the world in order to make a conclusion that will later be formed into a theory. For example, through observation using telescope, we concluded that there are 8 main planets that orbits the Sun. Popper rejected this idea, and he did so by pointing out one of the biggest weaknesses of the inductive method, which is the unpredictability of the validity of the theory in the future. As I explained earlier, the inductive method lies on the observation of phenomena to make a most likely conclusion. However, as time goes, other future phenomena might emerge that can disprove the conclusion. So in other words, theories created using this method will always have the possibility to be falsified in the future. For example, our ancestors in Indonesia have lived all their lives only seeing fellow black-haired human. So, through inductive method, it can be concluded that all humans are black-haired. However, later on, people from the West come for trading, and they have a variety of other hair colors, such as blonde, red, etc. And this fact eventually disproved the previous conclusion. Therefore, it can always be argued that knowledge obtained through inductive method is uncertain. And so what method did Popper offer in exchange of positivism's inductive method? He came up with the theory of falsification. Through the falsification principle, Popper suggested that deductive method should be used instead of inductive method. Instead of using observation to come up with a theory, scientists should use it to prove that a theory is wrong. By using this method, it means that scientists will need to come up with a theory first, and then they try to falsify the theory using observation. If the previous theory is proven false, then a new theory, a new and better theory will replace it. If it's not, then that theory will gain stronger standing. This method aimed to remind us as a scientist that science is not stagnant and not unfalsifiable. We tend to put scientific knowledge on a pedestal and forget that we have yet to know everything about the world. For all we know, we might never know the ultimate truth. So, for the better progress of science, we should try to eliminate every possibilities that can be proven wrong so that better theories will be created and we can inch closer to the truth instead of trying to come up with conclusions from the limited knowledge that we have, because it only takes one observation to discount a theory. An example for this principle in modern scientific method is peer review procedure. There are several critics to Popper's theory of falsification. The first one is that just because a theory is falsified, it doesn't mean that the new theory is better than the previous one. First of all, a theory is complex and it consists of a lot of aspects and facts. So falsifying one fact should not discount the entire theory. Second of all, it is possible that falsification happened because the experiment isn't thorough or is badly designed. For example, we rejected heliocentrism, the approach, because we observed that the Sun seems to orbit the Earth. However, it turned out that that observation is done from the Earth's perspective, and ignoring the sun's perspective, as well as observation of other planets that are also orbiting the sun. And then another criticism is also given by Thomas Kuhn, and we will discuss it next through his science paradigm theory. So, Popper, as well as other positivists, believe that science progresses when new knowledge are acquired. However, Kuhn rejected this idea. By observing the history of science, he found that in reality, science progressed through paradigm shift. In this theory, Kuhn defined science as paradigm, which is, quoting MacLeod, is a universally recognizable scientific achievement that, for a time, provides model problems and solutions to a community of practitioners. When a new problems is encountered and the paradigm can't offer an explanation, anomalies will start to emerge to challenge the paradigm. And if the new theories can explain the problem better, the old paradigm will be replaced with a new one. So let's take American psychology for example. Originally, the school of functionalism and the study of consciousness is the widely followed paradigm. However, people start to consider other perspective of learning psychology, which is to study the observable behavior instead of the unobservable consciousness. Psychologists who shift to study behavior started to come up with their theories, and eventually it ended up shifting the general interest of consciousness to behavior, with the climax of the publication of Watson's Psychology as the behaviorist views it. And that's how scientific community of psychology moved from the paradigm of functionalism to the paradigm of behaviorism. And so this is the Kuhn circle, which consists of all the stages of paradigm shift within 4 phases. The first phase is the pre-science phase. So this phase is a phase when paradigm hasn't been established yet. So scientists works in their own interest, rules, and many other. If we are using the previous example of American psychology, it will be the period before psychology is established as a scientific field. And then the second phase is the normal science phase. In this phase, a paradigm is established. Scientists' works start to revolve around this paradigm. This phase also contains the model drift stage. In this stage, scientists work in battling anomalies, but they are not really concerned about them because they believe that they can be proven false in the future. In the previous example, this is when structuralism and functionalism dominated the scene of psychology. During this time, novel ideas about behavior study starts to appear, and the scientific community tries to discount them. The third phase is the crisis phase. This is when paradigm shift starts. This happens if the attempt to disprove anomalies constantly failed and resulted in more intense battle. Scientists with opposing opinions start to gain bravery to challenge the reigning paradigm. If the anomalies can be disproven, then the normal science will hold its standing. However, if they fail, a change of paradigm will happen. This is when the behaviorism movement started to grow bigger and eventually led to a shift from functionalism to behaviorism. And then the last phase is the revolution phase. And this is when the old paradigm is replaced with the new paradigm. So this is when people left the study of consciousness and started to do researches and experiments on human behavior. So, in conclusion, the progress of science doesn't depict increase in knowledge, but more of a reflection of the consensus of the scientific community. Hence, it doesn't mean that the new paradigm is better than the previous one, It just means that it solves the problem people are currently interested in. Okay, so that's all from me. Thank you so much for listening. This is the references I use for making this presentation. If you have any questions, corrections, or discussions, please do leave a comment on the classroom. Thank you everyone. Have a nice day.